All right. So, today, my friends, is currently Sunday, November 12th, 2017. We have Education by Ed, and today's subject, as far as I know, is medical and vaccines and all the other stuff that has to deal with the medical side of aspects. So,
Hmm.
go ahead and take it away, Ed.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining us. This is one thing that we want to get in, so you get to know what right is. People will sit there and, well, first before I get in, I want to start off on a little tangent I went on yesterday, and I don't like to get off in tangents and especially lose my temper where I use some profanity words, especially online. But I did yesterday, dealing with these that turned out to be foreigners. And this is the one thing that people, you really got to pay attention to the people that are terrorizing us from Canada, England, and Aussies. They have these YouTube channels and they put stuff up to go after us so that way they can make their points known. Like they were trying to tell people that you have to have a driver's license, and if you don't have a driver's license, you're committing a crime. Well, so you comprehend what a crime is, folks. A real crime means property damage or injured man, woman, or child. Driving through a red light is not a crime. Not paying a citation is not a crime. Those are mentally challenged people who say that and mentally retarded who say that. Because that means you're a British subject or a national citizen and you're claiming you have no rights in this country legally or immigrationally. So let's get this completely cleared. You know, try to get the guy on. Wanted to do a talk show with this guy, and all these guys from England are still going off on this site that I put up on all my sites. And appreciate you go look at that. And dealing with 9E because he was still in jail for transporting, but they're calling him a sovereign citizen. And it's like what disturbs me is how stupid men and women are by claiming sovereign citizen or that type of language. Literally, how stupid. A sovereign citizen is oxymoron because either you're a citizen or sovereign. If you're claiming to be a sovereign citizen, that means you are a British subject. You have no rights, whatever. That includes with you have no rights to your children. That includes that you're saying you have no rights to your vaccines, to your children, to deny them. And if you deny your vaccines to your child, that is not a biblical structure of your Bible. That is called a Constitution right. And it's knowing what a Constitution right is compared to a privilege. See, that's the one thing that I'll argue with anybody on the Constitution and with law. Oh, I have a heyday with it because the Constitution protects your rights. And everybody says, oh, the Constitution gives you no rights. No, these people are stupid, number one. Number two, they don't believe in the Constitution. They're not educated to even have a comment about the Constitution at all. They're not educated. That's a true fact right there. Because if they were educated, and it's like the abortion deal, all right, that's the same thing with people that are claiming, oh, I have a right to an abortion. Yes, you do, women, because the Constitution gives you the right to your body. That is the whole point. The Constitution gives you a right. Okay? That's simple. You know, the whole thing is if you don't have a Constitution right to your body, that means a man doesn't have a right to his body. So that means the Bible gets to dictate who gets to be murdered and who lives, and that goes to the Vatican, the Pope, the devil himself. The Bible that dictates to people how to be enslaved, and that even goes to medical. If you make a decision under medical for your child or yourself, you have to live with that decision. You can't sit there and go blame a doctor. You can't go blame somebody else. Why do you think a doctor's license is called a practice? Why do you think a lawyer's license is called a practice? Oh, that's right. There's no such thing as a lawyer license. technically there's no such thing as a state lawyer license or a state doctor's license. The bar insures doctors, lawyers and attorneys and judges, and the doctors insure themselves under their own license, and it's not contracted by the state. They own themselves. That is the point that people need to comprehend to some reality here of how the circumstances of living men and women work, living and knowing what the Constitution is, knowing how the Constitution works to protect you. Because if you don't know how the Constitution is to protect you, then you're not sitting there knowing that you have medical rights. And everybody will say, and I love it when people do this to me, well, the Constitution says you don't have a right to medical. Oh, I laugh in people's face. Because what is the first terminology of the word in the Constitution? Doesn't it say life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? So without medical, how are you supposed to have life? How are you supposed to have the pursuit of happiness? How are you supposed to have any structure for your rights to even live? Because if you want to go by the Bible, and I'll tell you, I got my neck broken on the job. And even family members told me I was better off dead than I was to be disabled. Because being disabled is a disgrace and an embarrassment to the family and the Bible. Oh, come on. We know how people feel, Christians feel about that, because they even preach that in their own structure. I've witnessed it, been in church, listened to the ministers that have done this. That's a fact. So, instead of hiding these things, it's knowing what your right is, knowing how to protect your bloodline. Now, I get a lot of people that will sit there and give me hassles going, well, Ed, you keep talking about a bloodline. There's no such thing as a bloodline in this country. Well, I hate to tell you, folks, there is. And it goes back to George Washington, to the forefathers of the civil rights. See, this is the point that people do not step out of the movie, watch the production. They're too busy flacking their jobs without listening, without learning, without comprehending that a Constitution gives you rights, not privileges, unless you are an immigrant or an illegal. Illegals have no rights whatsoever, and if you are a legal immigrant, you pay for the privilege for your rights, literally. That doesn't mean you pay the church, because the church ain't going to give you no damn privileges or rights. They just rape, rob, and pillage. They endorse the men and women that rape, rob, and pillage you, called road pirates, call a judge, call the circumstances on what's going on. And it's very disturbing that, that people don't get this. And I have a deal that I put up on my website that if you're willing to file the criminal charges on your elected and public employees under 1938 Foreign Agent Registration Act, I put it together. It's up. It's there, available now. So it's up to you to claim your responsibility. And that goes to your medical, okay? And it's a medical directive. You can add it to a medical directive, too. Put it in as a medical directive. It's up to you to know how to protect yourself, your bloodline, your children. And I get people all the time telling me that you can't do this and you can't do that, Ed, and I do it all the time. I file paperwork all the time. We've seen another three more police departments, literally the chief and their public employees, walk off the job. 3 small cities, well, one of them ain't really small, it's 30,000 people. The entire police department walked off the job because they realized that they were rape, robbing, and assaulting people. When you are strip search, that is called rape. So that is a medical term too. And so you're sitting there and people are allowing their children to be raped when they go to the city or state. When you call in DHS and you have a problem with your child and people will call the state in or have a cop call, instead of learning how to resolve their problem or issue, learning how to talk to their children, and this is psychologically for medical as well. This is the one thing that people need to comprehend, what the truth really is in the world compared to what people are believing it is. So the one thing is the legal terminology of a child that is born is called a monster. Literally. This is not a joke. And there's no way and this is in the Valentin's Law Dictionary of 1930. A monster is a human being of birth, but in some part resembling a lower animal. A monster hath no inheritable blood, which is wrong on that one, because when mommy and daddy gives birth to a child, that's inherited. That's your lawful bloodline, or legal if you're from a foreign country. If you're from this territory of 5 or more generations, your lawful bloodline, and cannot be an heir to the land. Now, you remember, a lot of these dictionaries are written by British government, because they don't want you to have rights to the land. They try to convince you that the King of England owns the United States, which is not true. I have proven this on more than account. I have it filed. One U.S. U.S. Code 8. Person and human being is not alive. In other words, the child is not alive until it sees the light. You know? And that's the whole point. You cannot see the light. You have no circumstances to have birth. So if the child is birthed, that means that is owned by the state. You register a birth child to the state, so you're giving your authority to the state, your medical responsibility of that child to the state. You are saying that you're not claiming the bloodline of your child, your responsibility. And when people say, "Oh, well, you're not entitled to have, medical or your child," this is the United States. I've been arguing with people the last week literally from foreign countries, and they keep trying to say Canada has this, and England has this, and Australia has this, and New Zealand has this, and it's like, I don't give a darn what you guys have in your foreign countries. The United States has a constitution that gives men and women equal rights. That gives men and women equal rights to their bloodline. And that is your medical. And if you don't claim your medical, you are saying that you don't want responsibility for your bloodline. And this is the one thing, when you do file with the state, even if you get food stamps and medical, you write exempt on the structure. You write on it House Resolution 192. You have to protect your bloodline if you're lawful. And if you're legal, sorry to say it, technically, you're not entitled to food stamps, housing, or any of that. That's a true fact. You don't have a right to. If I went to Mexico, England, New Zealand, Africa, wherever, if I didn't have the financial resources to live with, because there's no public assistance exactly for immigration in any of those countries. That's the whole point, is that there is no immigration. And as soon as people start comprehending that people give up their rights, literally, and their bloodline to the state corporation, and remember, the state corporation is the British government under the Vatican. And that is the main thing, is that you have to realize that people go, "Well, I'm a Christian." Well, it's interesting that the Christians are the ones who are rape, robbing, and murdering majority of the people in the 48 states, and the other 3, Puerto Rico, Alaska, and Hawaii, that are part of the corporation states. So they're getting murdered by all these structure of the system. And this is the point that with this disturbing, because people get this stuff that happens to them, they don't realize what the medical responsibility is to themselves or their children. And if you don't know that, how are you supposed to protect your bloodline, your children, your responsibility? And that's the point. It is your responsibility, women and men. I mean, when you have a child, it's your responsibility. And when you decide to give it over to the state, and I watch people that sign paperwork and then the state comes in and steals their kid, well, that's mental trauma too. That's medical. You go through mental trauma. You go through certain things that happen to you, and these are things that you could file on when they come in your life and put stress on you. That is a medical condition, and you need to write it, what they did, how they accomplished, stressing you out, putting you in fear of more of the system or anybody else around you because of it. So it's learning the techniques of how the system works compared to what we're led to believe it is. It's like the Bible. Everybody's led to believe certain things about the Bible. And and the Bible gives me rights. Well, I've never seen the Bible give any man or woman a right in court. I've watched men and women go into court and preach about the Bible, and then I watch them go into jail for the Bible, and then they go on, and I always love it when people do this. Well, if God didn't want it, I wouldn't have been in jail. And I'm thinking to myself, what kind of moronic statement is that? That's exactly what these people want you to think. That's exactly what these people have brainwashed us to think, to comply. Yes, that's called complying. That's complying with their devil structure. We sit there and bitch on the internet of they're stealing our assets, how the banks are stealing our money that we're not supposed to be paying under House Resolution 192. Our water electricity bills are supposed to be covered mandatorily so long as your bloodline is 5 or more generations. And I even have the proof from Congress that it was filed in Congress under House Resolution 192 that says it. And I put it out on my site. It's on my website. And the thing is that you have to read this stuff and comprehend what it means compared to what people are leading people on to believe. This is the sad point of it all. Because people will get people going on. It's like I watched a lot of people file these things of to claim on debt, when the thing is, or they'll file different forms for the IRS. Well, if you're going to be out of the IRS, why are you filing forms with the IRS to be part of the IRS? See, and people say, well, when you file a form or 1099-A or D form or this and that, it takes you out. No, it doesn't. You're agreeing to their contract. You don't want to be part of their contract. You don't want to be involved in their contract. That means you don't take tax credit for your children. Because when you're taking from them, they're claiming, well, we're giving you this, so either your children is going to pay the debt, and that includes, that gives us the legal. Remember, legal is British law, not Constitution or American law. It has nothing to do with the Republic, because if you actually know the Republic law, the Article 4 says that the United States is supposed to be a constitution republic. That's it. We are not a democracy. Democracy is the devil's religions. Because everybody wants religion. Okay, well, have your religion, but where is it saving you? When you go to court, when your kids are kidnapped by the state, or you go into the hospital for your medical, your religion doesn't save you. But if you sat there and knew your Constitution, and you implied your rights under the Constitution, the hospitals won't mess with you. The attorneys won't mess with you. I've even got the structure up that I put up for children medically, that you could have your newborn child and not have a birth certificate, or have a birth certificate, and it does not get filed with the state or the hospital administration. But you have to read these things that I put together. Yes, people tell me, my God, Ed, these things sometimes are so long, there could be anywhere from 14 to 38 pages long. I think one of the other court cases I did was 47 pages. I think the worst one I ever did, I don't call it worse, but I wrote it was 127 pages, and I walked the whole court system from the education to the founding structure of our 48 states, all the way to today, and the whole true structure of how it works and what they're claiming and what they're committing the crimes are. That's what I'm saying. If you comprehend what 1938 Foreign Agent Registration Act, I've got that up on my websites now. If you actually start filing that on your mayor and city council members, okay, you want to file it. If you actually read it, it states in it, it's mandatory. If they do not file and register their positions as an elected and public servant, it's a felony, mandatory prison. And if we quit talking government and start talking and saying that we have elected and public servants, not government, because we the people under the Constitution are the government of the 48 states and the 51 of commercial. Because remember, they wanted to do commercial, so they got commercial, but we still own them. See, the commercial structure is the lawful bloodline. Americans do own the commercial structure. And that's where we have to be responsible in educating our kids. It was blissful today because I sat there this afternoon and I had a conversation with a couple of the kids in my neighborhood who are willing to learn and listen. They're only 10, 11, and 12. And I was glad that, they pulled me over. Well, I'm walking down the street with a dog, and they wanted to hear this stuff. They wanted to know this stuff. So by them wanting to know this stuff, that's where I was like really happy because they were taking the time to learn. They were taking the time to comprehend, And it's like one guy says, oh, well, the stuff I put up, nobody's going to read it. Well, it's your loss, not mine. And when people come to me and then they want to get their kids out and they want to do this, well, if they don't read it, I don't waste my time. Because I'm not an attorney, I'm not your lawyer, I'm not your mommy, I'm not your daddy. I'm only a guy that has a comprehension of lawful and legal. And I do know the corruption of the Bible, how it's mentally there to control men and women. I know how the structure was put in with the devil to put fear in men and women to control them. That's what the church did. It was mandatory by the church and the kings to do that so that way they could have fear over the peasants. Because that's why they had what they call musicians back then, or not musicians, but magical people, that sorcerers that, made their stuff pop up and do different things around you, and everybody was amazed like it was a miracle. Well, today we know that magicians do this stuff on a daily basis, and they put this stuff out, and we know what the truth is. But 100 years, 200, 300, 400 years ago, we didn't know what it was unless you caught the sleight of hand, unless you caught those things. So with the medical point of all this deal is knowing with the medical with your doctors. And that means when your doctor prescribes you medication, do the research on the medication before you take it. And if you have TV, I don't have mainstream TV, but if you watch TV today, you watch the TV commercials. And it says, if you take this picture or you take this pill, these are the side effects that's going to happen to you. And I think to myself all the time, why would people take this when you're going to sit there and die? Why would you take this medication when it's setting you up to kill you? See, these are things that make me question. And then everybody wants religion. And then they say, well, religion is going to save me. Okay, but see, the Constitution. Let me explain how your medical and your rights work with the Constitution. The Constitution gives you the right to have your religious belief. And the people say, well, the doctors say if I don't do this, the state's going to come in and take my kid because I didn't get vaccinations. No. You file it criminally because vaccinations on your child is child abuse. That you have to comprehend how to stand up to these men and women and learn how to talk the language basically like an attorney would. And when you start putting that up and you start talking to these men and women like this, it scares the bejesus out of them. I mean, years ago, I had kids around me that went through stuff, medically. And I was tearing them up all the time. And that's why, it's like things happen. And it's like you have to stand up for your bloodline. And these weren't even my bloodline kids because my 2 children are dead. So my bloodline is dead. So, the best of my knowledge. So, hey, that's just the way life goes. I don't sit there and whine and cry about it, but the bottom line is that it's life. But you have a bloodline, and it's your responsibility to protect your bloodline, and that's the medical point. That is the main thing of knowing how the medical works for you and your child, you and your spouse, your better half. I really don't like using legal terminology on some of this stuff. It bothers the daylights out of me because I'm not, I don't believe in the legal system of the British government or their religion. And people will sit there and go, well, Ed, you always pick on religion. But you have to realize that these men and women that you go to the hospital to see, or the doctors and attorneys and the judges, all are Christians. And they rape, rob, and pillage and murder. And if you go back in history, that's what Christians do. Hasn't changed in 500,000-600,000 years. And that's a proven record. That's why I don't claim those type of titles of nobility. That's like saying when they put a birth certificate and says the child is African American. No, it's not. It's American. If you put a child's entitlement on that birth certificate, you are saying your child is not property. You are saying that child, it belongs to the government called the British government, not of we the people. You're taking that child's constitutional rights or privileges if it's not native. Okay, even if it's an immigrant child. They don't have rights, but it depends if the parents follow the Constitution, they pay their structure, they follow the administrative rules. The system is not supposed to deport them or play these type of games. And that's where people do not look at the facts on how all this really works. And it's up to you to start putting these things together, you know, because I mean, right now there's more and more doctors that believe in basically I'm trying to think of the actual word. I gotta go find my link here I had in front of me here. I'll come up with it here in a minute. But I mean, these are doctors that believe in the actual soil around you, holistic doctors. I mean, now so far this is a doctor. This is the 77th holistic doctor. I got information today. Dr. Ann Fairbanks, rest her soul in peace. Her entire family was assassinated because the good old boys don't want people to know that holistic medicine works. That's why they butcher the trees down, butcher your forest down. Because if you don't have the Mother Nature plants that the natives learn how to use and live on, and I've got that up on New Oregon Trackers too, some plants that you could even cook down and have medication just like heroin or other stuff that grows right in your backyard. And a lot of these things that people knew about for hundreds of years, thousands of years, but they don't want you to know. I'm dealing with that with a doctor right now because of my lungs and stuff after being poisoned in jail a couple years back and assaults and everything on me. And it is really frustrating when they do this stuff. It really is. And this is the point that we have to start standing up and doing this. I do encourage you, and if you have my email, send it, and I'll send you the structure, how to file on your elected and public servant under the 1938 FARA, Foreign Agent Registration Act. That means if you are an immigrant, too, you have to be registered. If you are not registered, you can be deported. If you're not following the tax structure, you could be deported. And trust me, I'm not out trying to deport legal immigration. Being responsible, that learning the Constitution, to pass the responsibility of the bloodline down in their children. I'm not out encouraging that, but I want to make sure that you know how to deal with the medical responsibilities. And that is with your bloodline, because from your loins and the woman's loins, doesn't that create blood? Isn't that your blood? And that's where people don't comprehend that it's your bloodline. Even though it might have came from your grandparents, your great-grandparents, your great-great-grandparents, and it doesn't matter if you're an immigrant or legal in this country. It matters if you're legal, and it matters if you're lawful. But it's knowing what the circumstances are. Holistic medications, these are one thing that we need to get on. It's like the doctor prescribed me some medication for my lungs again, and I'm like, I've been trying to get some ethamycin. So if I had 3 days of that, just putting that in my system, because I can't take penicillin, that would help me out, because I developed a heck of a lung infection in my lungs. And I live right next to GP Mill, right in the county I'm in. And 2006, me and an associate of mine actually had it in the newspapers that proved that the mill created cancer in a 75-mile radius of the mill itself. And because of the way they blow out the stacks and cleaning the stacks and all that, we have that all, that was all put in the structure of the history in the newspaper, so that way it wouldn't have been a conflict of interest. I couldn't get, I'm trying to find, I got to go back digging trying to find the articles because the newspaper won't help me in the articles anymore because they're panicking on what I'm just filed on the Public Information Act, FORA Act. I do have a public information structure under FARA that you could file yourself, okay, you can file yourself on the website so that way you can get the information, and it puts it in Foreign Registration and Administration Act and the FARA, the Foreign Agent Registration Act, and you want to send a copy of that to the Department of Justice and Registration in Washington, D.C. That's where you want to send this stuff to. It's knowing the outlet to send it to get the stuff set up so this way we know what's going on. You know, and that is the other point, that you have to know what's going on. Oh, sorry. You get a guy who's telling me I didn't know he was on my friends list, and apparently he doesn't live in the United States. Well, normally I don't take people out on my friends list that are foreigners or on the site. I got a few on the site. But normally, I don't get involved with immigrants because that way I cannot be classified as a domestic terrorist. And that's where people do not comprehend how they do that, is they put you in a classification because you're dealing with people overseas. And they say, oh, well, I have a right to do that. My Constitution gives me that right. No, your Constitution does not. If you actually read the Constitution, it says with foreigners, immigration is privileged to this country, but we're not supposed to be dealing with them outside of our country or territories. I just don't, you know, it's knowing these things. And I want to touch on the workman's comp. Anybody's been through workman's comp, and I'm going to get into auto injuries because I just dealt with that with a car wreck I was in, or a truck wreck. But dealing with your workman's comp, what they do is they don't want to pay you your workman's comp claims. They want to put everybody on the British government, the state system. Prior to 1995, there was a public and a private sector of insurance. Now, everybody goes, well, the Republicans did this and the Democrats did that. They both did it, folks. They both screwed you. They don't love you. They don't care about you. They don't even care if it's your mommy and daddy that's a senator and a state representative. They don't care about their children. Oh, I watch these people saying, oh, I love this and I care about this. But then when they came to passing a Senate bill or a House bill that would protect their child, did they do that? No, they didn't protect the child. Oh, no, we can't do that. There was a thing that I wanted to have. I don't know if we have it, but I wanted to play a deal from Congress where they were passing a medical bill to extinguish you people, me, all of us. And the guy who's reading the bill kept on saying, well, I can't talk about that. That's classified. That's classified. And you can hear the tone of his voice. That's classified. And he's freaking out as he's saying it. He doesn't, you know, he's trying to read it, and he's freaking out because he realized what he's saying is classified, that he can't tell you. And he's encouraging people to vote for a bill that you're not supposed to read. You're just supposed to do what these men or women are told to do and pass these bills. And this includes medical bills. Literally medical bills in your House and Senate today. Even for your auto insurance, for your own children. They pass bills. They don't read it because they care about more of the money they get in their pocket than they care about their own children. Well, I'm living today, and then when I'm dead, my children are going to have to defend for themselves, so they're going to have to deal with it, not me. And that's the point that these people bring this up all the time. They don't care about you. They don't care about their own children. I've witnessed it. I've watched these men and women argue and bring these facts up on the House and Senate public hearings, stating the facts that they're doing against their own bloodline. And if you don't protect your bloodline, that is why they're getting away with it. That's why I put the information I do. You could use the information. I call them like a template, but it has a lot of stuff in it. Break it down to what fits you, if that's what you want to use. I put it out there to educate people. I mean, if I had a child, if I had a woman that actually was responsive and responsible, I mean, I'd be protecting her kids. The last relationship I was in, the woman didn't. She loved the system more than she loved the kids. That was sad. That's why I preach to people. If you want healthy foods, you have to grow it. You have to collect rainwater if you want healthy foods. Most of the food that you buy in the grocery store, so like I said, I preach it all the time, 60% of the food in the grocery store is not real. Literally, it is not real food. And it really isn't real food. Japan and China make plastic eggs that they feed their people. That's the one thing you need to realize. The grocery store food that you buy in the grocery store, some of that is recycled paper that you actually buy that you think is dehydrated potatoes and stuff. It is actually recycled paper with potato flavoring. That's where you have to read the labels. Truly read the labels. It's up to you to start doing this and teaching your kids. You start teaching your children to read the labels. And my God, then you'll start seeing the kids have more healthier attitudes. You'll see your kids be healthier. I mean, I know a lot of people that, I'm in my mid-50s. I mean, I've got 95% of my teeth. I know a lot of people my age that only have half their teeth, or not even all their teeth. And a lot of them didn't brush their teeth. They didn't take care of themselves. And then they want to blame mommy and daddy for it or somebody else. So I can see that. But after you get over a certain age, you should go out and pay attention and start being responsible for your body and realizing what you're going to do. And people can say that to me. Like I said, I've had relatives of mine say, well, if you didn't do that job and got your neck broke, you don't have a right to complain because, you're a burden on society now because you got a neck broke. No, I had private insurance. Private insurance was supposed to cover me. Then the states and the counties and everybody was working to put it on public system. All right. Now, the public system on insurance was supposed to be for elected and public servants. Was not supposed to be for we the people. And then until the 1989, I believe it was, when they took the insurance, because you used to pay insurance and property taxes for medical. And they took that money and renamed it to another insurance policy, so they stole that from we the people. And it's like I got a video up with, you can type with Arnie Roeblen, Senator Arnie Roeblen and Ed Johnston. You can type that one up, and you can see where I've got him admitting how they stole the money, because when you register your covered wagon, you're not supposed to pay auto insurance. You already paid for it in the registration, literally. Not a joke. It's already been paid for. They stole the money. And then they want you to pay more. And then they go, go pray to your God. Go ask God for it. He'll make sure it happens. Well, sorry to say, folks, I haven't seen God work that way. I haven't seen God. And so, it's like I always say, when God sits next to you, or Jesus will sit next to you, make a miracle happen and produce the real facts to you, you'll call him a liar up and down the storm because you wouldn't believe it, because you'll call him a magician. It's just how come people cannot be honest with themselves. So with your medical structure, is that when people say that you don't have a right to medical, I look at the Constitution, clearly states to me it clearly states when it says life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, doesn't that give you a right? Not a privilege? And if you're an immigrant in this country working and you're paying into the system, there's a difference of lawful American under House Resolution 192 compared to an immigrant. But if you're paying in the system, you're supposed to have that equal right as well because you're paying for it. You're investing in it. It's like Social Security. People say Social Security is a government agency. No. Social Security, if you read the founding structure of Social Security, it is a private structure of retirement insurance for, technically, and if you really read it, lawful Americans only. And it wasn't until 1993 when Bill Jefferson Clinton signed it over, and you can type that in the internet, to the Queen of England, the employee's compensation part. So he gave the employer's compensation over to the Queen of England. That was his contract for being an attorney. That's like Hillary Clinton was going to give the country over to the Queen of England if she became president. Because I think the Queen of England, they invested $50 million into her for that contract. That's what they do. They do these things, they sell out, and then people wonder why this and that happens. Well, you don't read it, like your medical. When you go in the hospital, you always put all rights reserved. I don't sign anything when I go in the hospital. The other point is, it doesn't say you have a right to sign for anything when you're in the hospital, if you actually read it. Because we're supposed to have medical coverage. Isn't that the law? It's not this law says that all Americans are entitled to lawful medical coverage. So when it comes to your medical, read these contracts. Read what you're getting into. I got to find the laws, too. I have the laws that even with Obamacare, it's federally illegal. Cannot be done. I mean, all this was done. We know Obama was born in Kenya. We know all the fraud. We got to be realistic. You know, we can't sit there and keep running and hiding on these things. We got to stop lying to the children on these issues. And that's the one thing. Once we start lying to the children and people start realizing what's going on, these things are going to have a much better effect on the children. Especially when you're filing on your bloodline and claiming your bloodline. And that includes yourself. Because when you go to court, and even if your child was taken and you go into court with DHS, you have an affidavit that claims your bloodline that you own that child. And you don't want to file it with the state, because the minute you file it with the state, that means the state owns it. That means medical coverage. And the state, and I put this up too with the state of Oregon structure, how they use Social Security's numbers to charge Social Security to bill for the children to raise your child. So that's why they steal children for medical reasons and any other reason. But they steal the children. I mean, years ago, I helped a lady get her children back from the state. Literally, 15 years later, what pissed me off is that one of her children became too mentally unable for her to take care of. So instead of her taking her responsibility, because she wanted to go to church, she wanted to go to church and be religious. She didn't want the child anymore, so she signed it over to the state because she couldn't handle it. So she goes to church and prays for her daughter that she gave up. See, that's what gets to me about religion and people like that. I'll give my child up, but I'll go to church and pray for the child, or pray for your child. Hey, you don't give a shit. You lied to your children. You lied to them. You didn't want them. And I hate it when people say, oh, I wanted my child. No, you don't. You just proved you didn't. You lied. One thing, I don't like liars when it comes down to it, and I recommend a movie called Interstate 60 to walk you through some of the legal system. Remember, legal is British, so when you're doing your birth certificate, your registration in the hospital, you're giving your rights over to the corporation, a dead entity. And it is a dead entity. It is not a living being. And that's the point that people need to comprehend, the lawful and legal parts of the medical society. Remember, a doctor is like an attorney. Practices law. Just practice law. That's what they do. They don't live law. They don't have nothing to do with law. They practice law. It's called statute, codes, and administration rules. And that's the one point that, people don't get that point. It's like this one child is arguing with the governor. Trying to go after this United States Attorney General to legalize marijuana nationwide because she needs it because she's disabled. She's a 12-year-old girl. She's making national news right now. Okay, so you need medical, no big deal. But the marijuana stock market has jumped so much, if people don't get this reality, Why is she sitting there going to the state attorney general demanding a legal right to which she has a given right to have? Because even if you read your Bible, it says it in the Bible. You know, you don't believe what you read. You want to go study it. You want to tear it apart, analyze it. So this child has some medical conditions, and like a lot of people have medical conditions, seizures. She has severe seizures. And because of that, you know, people go to jail for this stuff. And it's like, what disturbs me, I don't care if you think that drugs are bad. I don't care if you think that you're out in a war against drugs. It's all a fraud. It's all a lie. Where is your common courtesy and kindness to your fellow man or woman or child? You don't have it. And you call yourself maybe a Christian. That's what gets to me. Christians lie, cheat, and steal. Called elected and public servants, church members, ministers. You watch it all the time. You know, I mean, why does a church need money? Why does God need money? They don't. It's disturbing when people go through this. You know, I mean, it's like, you know, then they go out and they try to do this with state laws and the risk of cannabis. Well, actually, it's called hemp, tell you the truth, the legal point of view, not the lawful. That's the point that people need to comprehend what's lawful and legal. Legal is British administration statute codes and administration rules. The Constitution is your Great Spirit, your Mother Earth, and your Creator rights. I'll say AKA, some people will say God, okay, but that's your belief. I don't believe in that God. I don't believe in the Bible. The Bible came from England. Invaded our country, raped our children, killed our men and women. The Bible did. They did it through the men and women. That's real history. The natives were given the Bible to pray for the men and women who were raping and murdering their children and themselves. See, that's the one thing. I cannot comprehend how people cannot see what's right in front of their face. It's like medical. You know, I mean, I have terminal structure that I know what I have. Okay, and I'm fighting to keep the stuff going, the education going. I pay for all this stuff out of my little measly whatever. You know, sometimes I get a blessing or kindness, you know, and the thing is, it doesn't happen that often. And so, I mean, I struggle because I like to get more out. If I had more structure coming in, I could get more information out to the folks and walk people through a lot more. But I do have the medical filing for your newborn child, and if you have an email, and if I haven't sent it to you, email me, I'll send it to you. I have set it out. It's on the Facebook sites that I have, New Organ Trackers. It's on United States for America Republic, Elected and Public Servants Oversights. It's on Recall Kate Brown, Governor Kate Brown. And it's on, the other site is Civil War 1866, Lawful Bloodline Americans. And the reason why that site is that way, because in the Civil War, we fought the British government again on immigration rights. Not privileges, rights. We didn't want all the immigration coming in this country, so there was a group that decided, okay, we'll give them privilege, but it stops here. That way, there's no such thing as the DREAM Act that the Democrats came up with, because when you wake up from a dream, you come to reality. There's no DREAM Act that gives you rights. There's no dream that gives you rights. When you wake up from a dream, what happens when you wake up from a dream? You go, oh shit, I'm alive, I'm here. Oh, what a concept. So these are things that, you know, living, producing, and knowing the difference of how it works compared to what we are doctrinized to think it works. And that is the major point, how we're doctrinized to think it works. If you know how to stand up for your rights, then you can stand up for your medical rights. And knowing what you can take. And the other point is medical. Is teaching your kids about drugs and alcohol. Let them learn what their limitations are. I'm not supporting doing that, but it's better to educate your children that way than have them educated on the street and then having something terrible happen to them. See, it's like stepping out of the movie, watch the production. How do you protect your bloodline? How do you protect your medical, your structure? When I go into the hospitals, I don't sign their paperwork, and if I ever autograph their paperwork, I go through it with a red pen, and I highlight things, and I'll take things out of it. And then when I leave the hospital, 90% of the time, I leave with the original paperwork, the original copy. And yes, you can request the original paperwork because all they need is a copy. Remember, they're de facto 501c3. So 501c3 runs on copies, runs on the corpse. So you need the original. And that's the one thing you request is the original medical paperwork. And that's for you to request. You know, I mean, I watch these videos that they're putting out that makes me sick to my stomach where these guys are going about, oh, so many kids are aborted and all this stuff, and we need to stop all this. Well, excuse me, and excuse you. Who gives you the right to tell somebody else how to live in their body? The Constitution protects that man or woman's body for them, not you. You're entitled to your opinion in your home, in your shower, in your toilet room. You're not entitled to your opinion, of your religious opinion, to tell somebody else how to live in their own home, their own body. I'm not going to use the word vessel because some people will use the word vessel for their body. Well, if you use that, that's called the ship of the Bible and the ship of the British government. So if you're a vessel, that means you have to register yourself. And so that is the one thing that you have to do is do that for yourself. And, you know, that is the one thing. Good. I guess if people say you're willing to help, I'll give you my numbers and we'll get you in contact and we'll start getting some stuff together. But this is the main thing of putting this stuff together to stand up on these issues. Because if we don't start standing up for the children and educating ourselves, that's the problem we have with the medical. That's the problem we have with the structure today, what goes through how the children are being dramatically terrorized by DHS, by the hospitals, vaccines, and I even got part of it already written up, and there's another structure I got, but on vaccines, that's child abuse. So you can file criminal charges on these men and women for child abuse. That's the whole point. It's called being responsible, knowing how to do this stuff. And everybody will say, well, no, I'm not an attorney. I can't do that because you have to be an attorney. Well, I got the laws, too, that says you don't have to be an attorney because you're allowed to practice law so long as the law says you know the law. It's that simple. It is seriously that simple. So when you know the law, you can sit there and say, all right, I can do this with the law. But you have to know how to stand up with the law, not statute codes and administration or what they call a Bible book. Because like I said, the Bible doesn't give you rights. And the Bible, well, we're living the Bible, and the Bible repeats history, and we have to repeat history. And I keep going to myself, people, why are you repeating history? Why would you do that to yourself? We could change that through the Bible and not repeat history again. That's up to us to stop that so we can educate our children so we're not repeating history. That makes a logical sense to me. I don't know why it doesn't make logical sense to others, because to me that makes logical sense. Because we don't need to do this. And, I just saw this on somebody's board. BLM calls for the shooting of 90,000 horses. Well, we need to file criminal charges on the board of BLM. If anybody really wants to do something like that, willing to stand up, let me know. Because, we file the criminal charges on the board members. So you can't, everybody keeps going, well, we need to file a class action lawsuit. And I explain to people, if you file a class action lawsuit and the case gets thrown out, that means everybody's case gets thrown out. If you file 100 or 50 or 25 or 30 or 18 individual lawsuits and they throw out a couple, Well, they can't throw them all out. And if they throw them all out, I'm trying to post on some guy's wall, and it won't let me post on your wall. Sorry, dude. But see if I can do it this way. But it's like, this is the point that people have to learn the facts, how these things work. Knowing how to stand up for yourself. Knowing how to protect your bloodline, because it's your bloodline. And that's the one thing. I'll send the other one message to you in the deal, or if you send me your email. If you message me your email, I will not have a problem sending it to you email. So this way you see it with the stuff with the FAIR Act. And the FAIR Act, and let me explain this to you so you comprehend this. The Foreign Agent Registration Act. Doctors, lawyers, attorneys, if I'm not mistaken, anybody, the way the Foreign Agent Registration Act gets an income off of federal, state tax dollars or administration costs, has to register. That's why I wrote the whole thing. I think it turned out to be 38 pages long, the one I wrote. That way you file it on the individual elected and public servant. And I think there was 10 spaces, so you can include 10 of them in one filing. And so if they're not registered, you're filing for criminal indictments. And that's what you want to make sure, that they're getting criminally indicted. Because the federal law says if they don't register, it's a felony. Not a misdemeanor. It is actually a criminal act, and that goes back to World War II when that was put in place to protect we the people. It was put there to protect we the people. That is the one thing that people have to comprehend. These things were put in to protect we the people, not the corporation. And this is the point that I watch a lot of these foreigners that I argue with. Sometimes, like I said, I blew up with the one with the 9E stuff when they're going after calling him a sovereign citizen. Pisses me off because I've known 9E. I've been involved in a few of his court cases, literally, majorly. I can prove it. You go to my website and it's there. And when these people start talking about Foreign Agent Registration Act and they don't have to register, or these guys are sovereign citizens and they have to have a driver's license, federal law says you do not need a driver's license to travel. Federal law clearly states if you are elected in public service, registered church member, and an immigrant, yes, you do. Because we have a right to know who's on our public right-of-ways. Remember, our public right-of-ways. These are yours and mine. These are our public right-of-ways. And so it doesn't work for everybody else. We're not open to the world. The United States technically is not open to the world when it really comes down to it. And when people start going off on this, that we have these rights and we're from another country, sorry, we do have a right to deport you. We do have a right not to cover you in medical. And that's the one thing I do let people know. We don't have a right to cover people in medical. You know, foreigners. But I don't have a problem with major medical. They need a surgery and then we ship them home so it saves their life. I don't have a problem with that. I do have a problem when we're sitting there covering their medical, we're covering their housing, we're covering their children in school and paying all these financial debts for these people. That's where I have the problem with. And you should have the problem too with it. Because we're not supposed to be paying these people's family income and stuff. Even House Resolution 190, March 33, March 9th, 1933, when they took that away, that was for Americans. That wasn't for immigrants. The British government, and I have the 400 page where it was created in 1932, where the British government is the one that technically went bankrupt to we the people. The Americans didn't go bankrupt to the British, and this is the point where they're medical. Then they say, well, you're not entitled to medical. We're supposed to have the medical, and you have to pay medical insurance. Well, we are entitled to medical. And I'll argue that one. I think that's a good one. When people say, well, and I've argued with many people, and they say, well, you're not entitled to medical because it doesn't say it in the Constitution. Well, doesn't it say life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Without life and liberty, you have no life. You have no happiness. See, I mean, there's simple things to look at, especially when it comes to your medical and your workman's comp. Pay attention to the workman's comp insurance. I mean, when they tried to set me up in the state of Oregon, I wouldn't quite say set me up, but they wanted to use me as a main example for alcohol for medicinal use purposes. But I was smart enough to see that they were trying to use the alcohol structure to set up the people on alcohol to call them alcoholics, so that way they could put them in programs. Into programs to justify their state and federal funding. When they do vaccinations, like Blue Cross Blue Shield pays their doctors minimum $40,000 a year to vaccinate the people in their practices. Minimum per doctor. $40,000 a year to vaccinate the children in their practice. And I've had that, and I posted that. I think that might be up on our website. But I mean, they pay for vaccinations. They pay to have people basically not to get medical services, Americans. Because when everybody keeps talking about the DNA testing, well, they're doing DNA testing to prove if you're lawful in this country or legal. That's the real reason why they're doing it. There's no other reason why they're doing it. And so it's comprehending. The whole point is comprehending, do you have medical rights? Do you have medical privileges? And if you have rights, how do you protect your bloodline under a medical structure? That means when you have to do these things is do the research. When you get a medication, go on the internet, look it up, type it in, see what the side effects are, then type in how many people have died from it. You want to make sure that you are getting it done. So we want to make sure that you know what's going on with your medical and especially with your children. You need to know that what's going on with your children. I mean, if you don't know the medication of what they're giving your kid or you, and if you're not doing the research to find out what the side effects are it does to you or your children, you can't sit there and go blame a doctor, because that is called a parent's responsibility. If you're not going to immunize your child, that is your responsibility. We know immunization does cause Alzheimer's. I've even put up the reports even came from the United States House and Senate actually finally admitted a month ago that autism is caused by the medications they're giving the children. Finally, they recognized it. After 45 years, remember that a lot of these things were started in the 1970s, where people were speaking out in the 1970s saying this was going on, and everybody was just like, oh, they're just hippies, they're just whining. They're hippies, they don't know what they're talking about. Hang on a second, I got to take a sip of some water here. In the 70s, everything was blamed on the hippies. Drugs were blamed on the hippies. If the hippies actually were smart enough and they stood up on their rights back then for themselves and their children and knew the Constitution, my God, what a change would that be? We don't think about these things of what's transpired and how it works with medical, how it works in the legal system and the court system, the British court system. Because when you go into the court and you're going after your medical in the court, you hire an attorney, you give up your rights. You're saying you're an incompetent man when you sign, or woman, when you sign that state birth certificate, and the state turns it in to the state. You say you are not a responsible parent to that child or to yourself, so the state can walk in and take your kid anytime they want. That's a true fact. You're telling them that you don't want your child. This is the way these Christians look at it. These men and women who work for the state, corporation, the dead corporation identity, are Christians. Look at it. And I argue with people all the time. I'm a Christian. And I says, oh, you support this. Oh, no, no, no. Well, don't you think that the mayor, the city council, the doctor, the lawyer, the attorney, the judge, you think they're not Christians? See, this is religion. When you go to court, religion is dictating to you, not common intelligence. Religion. Your courts are based on religion. I mean, I've seen kids on the internet and stuff, and I've even heard tales, even in my own county, where kids farted in class and got arrested for offensive smell. See, that's the one thing. I mean, we're doing this, and that's the one thing that people don't get it, They don't get it. I'm talking to kids that are being kidnapped and held for ransom for farting in a classroom. I mean, a kid gets petty theft, all right? You got a 12-year-old kid that goes in and steals a candy bar, and then they're going to ruin their life by going through all these programs and stuff. And that's the point is that how come we're ruining kids' life for personal and financial gain? Religion. And people go, well, racism. Well, you don't like the skin color of me. That's racism. And I keep going, people, grow up. Start being intelligent here. The Constitution, compared to the Bible, is equal to each man and woman's skin color. It is that simple. If your skin color is purple, pink, blue, red, whatever it is, green, you have equal rights as lawful American in this country. If you are an immigrant that is paying their system under the tax structure the way it is, and if you read the FAIR Act that I put out there too, it actually clearly states by FAIR administrative rules and the IRS, elected and public servants, registered church members, and all immigrations are mandatory to pay taxes. That's the law. Lawful Americans are not supposed to pay taxes. You're not supposed to pay taxes on your labor. Immigration, hate to say it, but yes, you do. That's what it says. You're paying your rights to pass your bloodline before you become free. You don't come in our home and expect to get a roof over your head and food delivered to you. You have to earn it. And earning it is paying that system until you advance the bloodline. And then hopefully when you advance your great-great-grandchildren or great-grandchildren or even grandchildren to the system, you have land that you're leaving to them so they can collect rainwater, grow food. They keep, what is that? Oh, your bloodline, your spirit, your soul alive. Remember, the thing is that people go on this thing where everybody dies and they don't get where this whole thing happens. And they say, there is over 10,000 extinctions a day. Every 10,000 animals die and are extinct every day. Well, you have to look in the mirror, my friends and sisters, because the one thing is that when you become extinct, that's you. My children are dead. I'm extinct. I get it. I live in that reality. I have things that I have to figure out what I'm going to do. But, this is the point that you have to think about your bloodline, how to protect the bloodline. How do you protect you to live? All right, you die in 40, 50 years or whatever, but is your bloodline dead? No, but you have to protect your bloodline, and the only way that you live is writing your historical references and stuff. Even if you could use the book that everybody knows the way I call the book, but you could use the book of the Bible. Because prior to that, and everybody will say in history, well, everybody used to write their births and deaths in the Bible. Well, technically, Christians did. Roman Catholics did. Until, some of the other religions, they didn't really form until the late 1700s or 1800s. You have to realize that most religions, we only had about a dozen religions until the 1980s, realistically. You know, and then we got Scientology. There's another one that goes out on a limb. And I hope they do pull their tax credit on the deal on it. But this is the point that you have to realize that when you become extinct, you don't exist anymore. That means you, yourself, look in the mirror. That means your bloodline, your existence doesn't exist. And when people go through these little structures, when they talk about how, you know, these people disappear, or this happened to them, well, you have to realize, did it really happen to them? Did they set it up themselves? Is this what they want? I mean, come on. We hear different people that supposedly have died, and then we find out that maybe they're not dead, that they're still living. So they allowed that to happen. They wouldn't want to be that. Maybe they're famous and well known, and they didn't want to go through the trauma. I mean, it's like the other point is that we go dealing with the political in Hollywood. Remember politics? Poly is a blood-sucking tick. And that's where people don't get it. So they're raping children, and they're doing that. The cops are raping children when a cop gets arrested, and they put a kid at 6 years old, even goes into the state foster home. What do they do to that child? They strip that child naked. That's rape, people. That's rape. You imagine when you're 6 or 7 years old in front of 4 or 5 people you don't even know, and they're telling you to strip your clothes off. Hey, that happens daily. In the state of Oregon, it happens. They've even done that to kids in schools, that the kids won't tell their parents, and the parents are too afraid to call the cops because they're afraid to be shot by the cops for speaking up. True stories. I talk to people like this, and they get scared. That's scared. And I tell them, well, I'll do this and I'll do that. And they're like, well, no, we just want you to know. Well, I appreciate that. But, you know, I can't go by hearsay evidence unless they're willing to put it in an affidavit. But I appreciate that the fear. And they are feared because right now today, you are living no different than Nazi Germany did. We are living in hell today, literally. Hell was created by the Roman Catholic Church and Christianity for fear of man, to put fear in man. That's what hell was created for, to put fear in man. Wake up, people. This is how it really works. Like I tell people tell me, well, Ed, you don't believe in the Bible, and I'm going to pray for you. And I said, okay, I appreciate that. I respect that. That's your right. I'm not going to argue with that because the Constitution gives you and me equal rights of our religion. It gives me and you equal rights to our bloodline, our children. It gives us equal rights. All right? Now, if you're sitting there whipping your child with a cane every day because it, you know, knocked over a jug of milk or something stupid, well, I believe that maybe a right crosses do you. But the point is that you don't sit there and, I mean, I've worked in the bar industry, in the nightclubs. I've been a bodyguard. I've been a rent-a-cop. And, you know, a lot of people I never arrested. I just dealt with it right there. I had people afterwards come back and said, hey, it was a beating that they needed. And it's like, but see, now what are you going to do for it? How, you know, I'm sorry I had to go that direction. But what am I supposed to do? Go throw you in jail? Because that ain't going to do a damn bit of good. Because, you know, I know people that go, hey, shit, I stole again, so I got 3 months in jail. I got 3 cots and a bed. And it's scary, more scary today in jail, not just scary in jail itself, but in jail they put you in a closed room, incarceration, in a square box, no TV, no nothing, and that's the same thing that Christians did in the Christian wars, and the British government did to their own people that we said in this country we were not going to do, and we're reliving that right now today. And your medical is reliving the same structure that happened even in the plague days. Oh, that's right. You're not supposed to know that. You know, a few states have the plague again right now in the United States. So it's protecting your medical. Paying attention when you're out and you see somebody sick outside. Stay away from them. Because, yes, there are, I think it's 137 cases in the United States that's recorded in the historical records of human services for plague right now today. Oh, no, I sit on the computer all day long. This is what I do for an average of 11 to 15 hours a day, research. Day in and day out. I don't have a life. You know, my life was stolen from me. So, hey, I want to give it back. What your Bible says, do unto others, you want others to do unto you. So I figured that's an equal point. Now it's time to start going out. Now I'll have some other indictment papers coming out. You know, did that again. There goes another shock. But it's like, this is the point that either you have to start standing up for your bloodline, comprehending your medical, and educating your children in medical. I mean, I was shocked this afternoon, you know, these 10-year-old girls this afternoon are asking me about the Constitution today. The neighbors across the street, when the other kids were asking me, the parents came out and said, Dad, you teach my kids that, I'm going to call the cops on you and have you thrown in jail because they're too young to know it. And today, the parents were basically right inside the door, and the kids were talking to me, and they were asking me questions. And I was telling them questions. And they want to get some education. They want to learn their rights. So the whole point is that kids, I started learning this stuff and paying attention when I was 7 years old. That's when I started learning. Started comprehending this stuff. When I was 12 years old, I truly comprehended a lot of this stuff. I didn't play the game. I sat in the background a lot. Let everybody else walk in and make fools out of themselves and do different things. I learned that a lot, you know. Anyhow, you know, this is the point that is, if we don't sit there and start educating one another how to protect your bloodline, and that means standing up for your bloodline. That means, you know, I got a page that we'll be getting up, so we do have a public noticing board on the new .org trackers. You know, it costs me so much a month every month to do that, and I'm disabled. So I get to justify what kind of medications, if I'm going to have medication or not. But see, I do this for you guys when it comes down to it, because me, what the heck does it matter to me? Like I said, my children are dead, but I want to see that the Constitution survive in my country. I want to see the bloodline of my Americans survive in this country, native. Native is not just Indian. I don't care what these stupid people tell you. I argue with stupid people all the time, literally argue with stupid people all the time. And they try to say, well, you don't have this right, and you don't have that right. And it's like, you know, it's like we have a right. Unless you're an immigrant, you have privileges. I'll be clear on that. But see, I don't have a problem with immigrants, and I don't have a problem helping immigrants so long as they're protecting their bloodline and setting up their assets and that stuff for their bloodline, so that way they survive, they live, they pass their soul, their spirit down. They're taking responsibility for their bloodline. That I respect, folks. We need to start respecting these things instead of having people arguing about stupid things. I mean, this guy is on the internet, and I posted this up on my wall with 9E. You know, oh, everybody needs a driver's license. And these guys are from a foreign country. You know, and they're calling, oh, the newspaper says these are sovereign citizens. Well, the newspapers are going to write what they write because they get paid to write, because the Democratic Party owns them to write it. Hey, I think that's called a reality check. You know, come on, look at it. I mean, we were glad that Hillary Clinton didn't get elected. She would have done that. She was going to sign this country over the Queen of England. The Queen of England even admitted last year when Hillary Clinton lost, she couldn't take over the United States because Hillary Clinton lost. That was November 2016, after the election. So it's like, you got to realize how this, and everybody goes, oh, it's the bankers. The bankers are the Vatican, the Pope, the saints, the men who work in the church, the ones that work in the hospital that sit there and say that you can't have an abortion. We're going to give a guilt, and you should give that child up so we can make money on that child. I mean, I got a thing, I don't know if it's on the deal. I got things I'm posting up on the new .org trackers, but I got a thing that says to a lady, she's got one of those pregnancy tests, and goes, her expression in her face is basically, oh shit, I'm giving birth to a corporation. In other words, I'm owned and the kid is owned. And this is what we're dealing with, medical stuff. This is what we're dealing with, the circumstances around us. So when it comes to your medical, it is called a personal responsibility and a personal liability. And the liability is to you, your blood, your children, your brothers, sisters, cousins, and your bloodline. Of course, I got a lot of friends of mine that are brothers and sisters from another mother, but that's beside the point. We know how that works. But we've got to sit there and be there for one another. And when we're filing these court cases, we've got to stand up. You know, I watch all these court cases going through, and people sit there, and when you stand up for them, everybody's there at court. And then when you end up in court, nobody's there for you. And that's the thing that really gets to me. I've been there for a lot of people on these situations, a lot of people I know who have been there for other people in the same situation. Literally. And then when it comes down to it, they weren't there. Even when it came up for them to protect their families in medical situations. And the thing is, if you ever get a caseworker coming to your door, you never open the door unless you know somebody's personally coming to your home. Because the minute you open the door and that cop puts his foot in the door and steps in, they take it as a right. That's called legal. That's how a judge defines it. So even though that's technically breaking and entering, but if you don't know how to file the breaking and entering charges on that public servant, you know, that's the one thing that people wonder why their kids get stolen all the time from the state. That's what I'm saying. When you medically register your kid, you're saying to the state, you can steal my kid. That's what it means. And you got all these other people saying, you don't have rights and you can't do this. And yes, you can, folks. So I'm trying to get through you to comprehend these stuff. I'm going to open up the floor here for comments and stuff. You know, but when it comes even to the vaccines, your children are forced vaccines. There's hospitals right now, and there's school districts right now forcing children to get vaccinated. And if you don't get your children vaccinated, they say, well, you can't have your kid educated in our school system. Good. Then get a hold of me. We'll file the paperwork, and in that way you go claim the money that they get, the $14,000 or $15,000 a year they get for that education for that child. Yeah, we could probably, get 3 or 4 in your neighborhood.
All participants are unmuted.
Thank you. That's $70,000 for somebody, 2 people, 3 people to work together educating the kids in the community. See, it's open your minds up to how we can work this out. So, but anyhow, I'll open up the floor, seeing that everybody's unmuted. I'm waiting up at the floor. So, first one, go ahead. I didn't realize I've been on that long going.
Ed.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Ed. So you're saying take that. Do I have to show the lawyers or judges or mayors or anybody if I know that they haven't registered, or can I just go ahead and if I know their names and everything, go ahead and file it and send it to Washington, D.C.?
Right, exactly. You don't, but you notify them as you send it to Washington, D.C.
Oh, okay, so let them know after I've already sent it?
No, as you, because what I'm doing right now is I'll be having mine emailed to my locals here, right?
Uh-huh.
So, and if you notice on the deal I sent you, it has the emails for the Department of Justice and all the Department of Treasury and everybody else in it that has to comply to it. I'm sending it to them in their own emails with that to their emails, to the newspapers too. I'm sending it to the media as well.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So then that way, then I'm taking a copy of each one, and I'm going to hang a copy up on the City Hall bulletin board. I'm going to take a copy, hang it on the county bulletin board. I will email it into the Secretary of State and send a copy registered mail to the Secretary of State, certified and registered to the Secretary of State. When I get my green card back, I know it's registered in the state. Because by law, every elected and public servant is supposed to be registered with the Department of Justice of their state and the Secretary of State. See, they don't want you to know this stuff. This is why the Democrats have been getting away with this shit for the last 30 years. This is the one thing people, some of us known it, and we didn't think about it, and then we started going back through it, and it's like, because I remember a form I had to fill out back in 1980 when I worked for the state of California. And I never thought about it. And then it was like, when I read this, I'm like, holy mackerel, that was a little short form I filled out when I worked for the fire department. It didn't click to me at the time. When I did it, because it was like most of us, we just autograph things and we go on. But does that make a little more clarification for you? Because this way you're setting it out so nobody can sit there and try to say you pulled a fast one on them?
Yes, sure. Although I don't see how it'd be pulling a fast one since they should already know what they're supposed to be doing.
Well, yeah, but no, trust me, I've been through this. When I've had the House and Senate bills, I've had these men and women go, yeah, you blindsided me on this. And it's like, to me, I'm going, you guys should know this stuff. And then most of them, I realized, didn't even have a clue what their own positions really were.
All participants are muted, and they can unmute themselves. All participants are muted.
So, anyhow, if you want to get back in.
All participants are unmuted.
Oh, okay. Well, you already unmuted, so nobody has to worry about that. So, but does that make sense?
Yes, Ed, it does. Thank you.
Okay. Because this way you're putting it so that way they can't say that you blindsided them. So you're eliminating an argument before they try to claim something. And see, if most people did that, we would eliminate 60% of the crap that they try to put in these commercial maritime courts. And that's the one thing that people go, well, these courts are maritime and stuff. Yes, we know that. We know what they're doing to us in these courts. Raping our children, doing this stuff to us. It's like the other point that I've got a couple other gentlemen I'm dealing with that are going through interesting time of divorce. And it's like, okay, so you're sending a contract to the woman, you're paying the child support to the child. Not to the state, not to mommy, to the child. But the child can only spend so much a month or a year, and the rest of it has to go into an interest drawing account, and they can't touch it until they're 18. Then that way, mommy has to help buy the clothes. Mommy has to do this until they're 18, but you're setting up a fund so that way when they turn 18, they have housing. They have a way to get away. If mom is that bad, they have a way to get away from mom without paying mom, without mom draining all the funding, so that way the kids cannot have a life. And men and women do that. It's not just women, because some men end up getting child support too, and they both play the game. So we have to be fair and equal on that one. So, those are the lessons in life. But the other point I want to bring up with workman's comp and auto accidents. Remember, auto accidents, read those contracts. I just went through it where, they're telling me I might need surgery, but then they came up with an argument that, I could see that if I wanted to go to court, yeah, I could fight it for 2.5 years, and I wouldn't get probably anything because it would be drained out by their attorneys and structure. So I did what I did, but I've got a surprise coming up for them, so I'll file my surprise coming up here. See, they are liable. They took the responsibility, because when you have private insurance, an insurance company takes the liability for a man or woman who's in an accident, they take a liability for them. And if there's permanent bodily injury, they're still liable. But nobody really reads the insurance codes in these type of stuff. They go, but this law says this, and this administrative rule says that. Yeah, but there's other laws that say, that supersede those administrative laws, and there's federal laws that supersede the state laws. And that's where the other point is, people say, well, the federal government gave all the states their individual rights. We still have a contract with the states so long as that your bloodline goes back to Civil War and to the original contract of the state with the British government, because each state from 1800s has a contract with the British government. And remember, with the Unions, that's why we fought the South with the British government, white slavery. That's the rebel flag. If anybody knows anything about why they're taking the monuments or the rebel flag down, because it actually says the rebel flag states racism. But do people know that? No, they don't want to know the truth about this. Not only that, the rebel flag actually was the Union Jack flag for the British government. It's the same thing that your gold fringe flag in the courthouse is about. You know, it's the trickery we get. It's like, we all seen how people do a card trick on us, and when I was younger, I used to know a lot of card tricks I used to play on people and had fun. And these are things that we get to grow up and we get to learn that is it still a card trick or are we still, how are we handling it today compared to what we thought we were doing? So, these are just things that we have to look at. We have to realize what's going on around us. So, and then, like I said, tomorrow night I'm going to be getting in the flag structure of the court system itself. So this way people know what's going on, what the emblems of the flag means and stuff. Because it's like with your medical, you have to read these contracts. And when you go into the hospital, this is the main thing that people don't have to do. You do not have to sign a release form when you leave the hospital because they want you to do that so that way even if they medically screw you over, you can't sue them. The other point is if you call for an ambulance, this is the main point I wanted to bring up to people tonight. If you call for an ambulance, or if any relative dies in an ambulance, this is why they tell you, call 911, we're going to protect and save you. No, they're not. Because if any relative, family member, or any man or woman or child dies in an ambulance, by their administrative rule, by the state's administrative rule, they cannot give you any information of how they died on the way to the hospital. They have to protect the ambulance driver and the corporation. That's mandatory. In the state of Oregon, that was done mandatory by my two former district attorneys that I fought even on the Oregon State House and floor, and I fought in my own county in public hearings, and I got people at the city and the county telling me, Ed, you don't know what to talk about. I got people in town, and I'm trying to explain to them what they're doing, and they're going, oh, no, they won't do that. They're not going to do that to us. Ed, you always a conspiracy theory. And I'm going, it says it right here in the contract. Did you read it? Oh, no, they won't do that. But I don't have time to read the contract, what they're doing, or what the vote was about. I don't have time to read that. I don't have time to see what they passed in the House and Senate, but they wouldn't do that to us. And let me tell you, when somebody tells you they won't do that to you, that's exactly what they're going to do to you. That's what amazes me with people, how the ignorance and stupidity flows through them, even to their children that way. How many people you know that, their children are not even educated to the 1871 contract that we have with the British government after the Civil War? How many people don't realize that the Civil War is what the North fought against the South, so we still had freedom from the British government? Yeah, the North and the South, British government war again. Fighting for our rights of freedom by the Constitution. That's why in 1871 we ended up with two constitutions. One was by the Vatican and the British government. That was a contract with the Elected and Public Employees Union. And then we still have our organic constitution. So this is the point that, knowing these things, knowing how to protect your bloodline, your children. And it's reading this. We got videos. I got more videos and stuff we're plugging on the website. I'm very thankful and grateful for the gentleman involved in this. He changed the background on the website so it's more pleasing and more soothing to people's eyes. And he's had a lot of compliments on the new design. And we are working on things, and if you got suggestions, please make sure we get it. If you got something to add to the site, let us know. If you got filings, we do have a public site up there, so we can put it on the public stuff. And if it goes on the public stuff, no matter where you're at, you can go there, pull it up and print it. You got a copy right there, right off the site with your information on it. So it doesn't matter where you're at, and if you don't have your paperwork with you, you go right to the site and you go print it. So I'm trying to set this up to not only protect our bloodlines, but to protect ourselves in this structure. So, I mean, like I said, I don't know what's going to happen after my medical, but that's just life. So, we'll see what happens at that point. But right now, this site is being set up to protect thy bloodline. So that way you have your information up there. So if something does dramatically happen and you don't have a way to get your files when you're not at home, you go to the site and print it off. See, I'm trying to set it up so we've got things that are easy for us to work on, things to protect the bloodline of even lawful and illegal. Immigration that is illegal, don't ask me for compassion. I don't care about your children. I don't want to know your children. I don't love your children. Your children, and you came and invaded my country, that's coming into my house, putting your head down and stealing my food. No. You come in and do it right, I don't have a problem helping and sharing. And I'm known for that in my own community. Believe me, immigration knows me in my community. But, I mean, that's the point. We don't have a problem with that. I do not support illegal immigration, and I will be finishing going after Cape Brown near this week on that, too. We don't know sanctioned cities. We don't violate the Constitution. We are not a democracy. And if you type in republic into the Constitution, you'll see that the Constitution guarantees us a republic, not a democracy. And democracy is to kill you. That's where a lot of House and Senate bills have passed, to murder you and your children. People keep going, they wouldn't do that to us. They've already done it, folks. It's already in history. It's already written. It's already passed. It's already done. They've already done it. The only way to do it is put your affidavits and make it publicly known and protect your bloodline. Once enough people start protecting the bloodline, we can change administrative rules. But until people start comprehending their bloodline and protecting and saving their bloodline, there is no future for your children or you when it comes down to it. FEMA camps, they got guillotines. They got 2 to 3 guillotines in each and every FEMA camp. This is a reality, folks. That was designed that way. FEMA camps are concentration camps no different than what Adolf Hitler did. They're execution camps. And that was one of the bills I wanted to get played. Eventually, I'll get that Senate bill again and play it. That was the bill when they kept on saying the bill was classified and telling every senator and House of Representatives to vote for it. And if they didn't vote for it, they would be executed. We've had senators that were Nancy Schaefer, who spoke up against DHS. Her and her husband were executed because they proved the fraud. Now we finally, and one of the judges that was involved in that, finally got 20 years in prison. But it takes sometimes time for these things to happen. And the reason why it takes so long is that people refuse to stand up for each other. That's what gets to me, and they call themselves Christians. You'll go, Ed, you're heavy on Christians and religion. Yeah, everybody talks about religion, but they don't give a damn about their children. They don't protect themselves. But we're a Christian. But you're not protecting anybody by saying you are, is proving it. I don't know what a Christian is, to tell you the truth. I've never seen one. I know religion is mind control. I know that for being an ordained minister. Been in churches in and out of churches all my life, until 20 years ago. I won't get into the mind control. I'm done with it. Watched enough of it. So, I mean, these are things to look at. So look at our site. We do have the structure up for your lawful bloodline. We do have the structure up to file on your immigration on your elected and public servants, and to file to make sure they're registered with the Immigration Act, Foreign Agent Act, the 1938. And the actual law says if they're not registered, it's a mandatory felony right there. So you want the registration, and if you don't get their registration within, say 14 or 21 days, whatever it is, no more than, never go past 30 days. They don't need more than 21 days. But when you don't get it, then you make sure that you request back to to the Department of Justice and you ask Sessions, why are these men allowed to rape, and you put it, why are they allowed to rape and murder the children? How come you are allowing this personally for them to murder the children in this country? How come you're protecting murder? Be blunt. I'm blunt. I don't have compassion for these men and women. They don't give a shit about me or you or the children. All they care about is their own personal and financial gain. That's all they care about when it comes down to it. They don't care. So when you start putting these facts together and standing up on these issues, then you've got rights that protect you. And so for those who, you can find me, I'll give you my email when you get a hold of me by messenger or call me, and I will send you the other filings that you can file and read them, because they wrote it, as we say, the lawful bloodline Americans. We quote it. We quote it to protect the organic Constitution. I don't want to hear about the Bible. The Bible doesn't give you rights. The Constitution gives you the rights. It protects your rights from your public servants. It protects your rights from religion. Because religion is what's destroying this country. I watch it all the time. Oh, we need to put Christ back in the churches. Well, if you read the Bible, it even says God in the Bible is the devil. Hello, read it. Quit interpreting the Bible like a lawyer does a case or a judge does a case. That's what a judge does. I've even proven that with the signs. You even got judges that will tell you, I'm the same authority that a pope or a minister has. And judges have actually said that in the courtrooms. And they're telling the truth. They're the black robe popes, the black robe ministers. Where the black robe pope is. And everybody goes, oh, there's going to be a new black robe pope. Wake up, folks. The black robe pope is sitting in the courthouse. It's judging you right now today. That's exactly what it's doing. That's your black robe pope. So you've got to start opening your eyes and quit being confused by the misdirection that people are giving out there on the circumstances. Like tomorrow night, I'm going to be getting in the flag in the courtrooms. So you know what the court flags are about. When you go into court, what it means. That's the same thing when you have a child. You claim your bloodline. It's your bloodline to claim. You own you. If you don't own you, you don't have a right to be here. It's that simple. You have to own you. It doesn't mean it gives you the right to be on the street corner screaming and yelling. That's a fact. I can't be on the street corner yelling my religious belief. It's like these people are out in the street corner. Jesus is going to save you and all this stuff. What are you out there yelling about Jesus for anyways on the street corner? How come you're not growing food and when you see somebody hungry, drop them off a bag? I mean, in California, they just got a Methodist church that the church was just told if they keep feeding the homeless, they're going to arrest the church members. Of course, we got to put a message down the church saying, if you want to stop this crap, here's how we can do it. But, I was like one of the churches, I did that to a church about 8 months ago, and they said, well, what law do you study in? What's your law degree? And I said, you don't need a law degree as long as you know the law. And I said, the other point is that you need to hold the police department personally liable, the men and women, so anybody who dies, they commit murder, and you're violating the murder charges pre-existing on them. Well, I can't do that. That's not in God's name. Sure the hell is in God's name if you want to claim that one. If you're going to protect a man or woman's life and you're saying that you're not supposed to feed them and they're supposed to starve, isn't that population control? Isn't that murder? That's what it gets to me. And that depletes the health insurance, the health coverage. You want to talk about medical and they're murdering people by doing this and you're endorsing it? Or friends of yours that are endorsing it? That's why, I don't have very many friends. Because I won't sit there and accept and comply and accept their deal saying that, well, it's okay because they said this or, this agency said that or this cop says I have to do that and I'm not supposed to do that because they're claiming some law says this. Well, and people go, well, the Bible says we have to repeat history. Morons say that. Get rid of your Bible. Send it back to England. When everybody send their Bible back to England, oh my God, we have nothing to read. We can't repeat history. Whoa, what a concept. There's ways of stopping this stuff, but do you really want to stop it, or do you like misery? Well, I'm finding out a lot of people, without misery and having things to whine, they can't live life themselves. That's the sad part. So, but anyhow, if anybody's got any thoughts or questions, I'll throw it out, and then I'll wrap it up for tonight.
Hey, Ed, this is Ray. How you doing, man?
Hey, doing good, Ray. Did you get the email I sent you?
Yeah, no, I'm reading it over now, and
Okay.
I've been reading it and sharing it around. I wanted to check with you before. I have some folks that might be interested as well. These guys were thrown in jail for 30 days for typical contempt of court, for trying to challenge a jurisdiction, nothing out of hand. But anyway, so we need to hold these people to task. Are you willing to share it, or do you need some kind of contribution, or I mean?
No, pass it around.
Okay. Well, great. No, that's great. The one thing I've noticed on these, that when you send it and you put the all the emails, like in line 16 through 19, and you put them in like a link form, the only thing that printed for me were the commas. So the emails don't actually print. So I don't know if you want to just put them in a two different forms or what. But anyway, that's
interesting.
Yeah, and I noticed that when you sent me the last one, because I went to look at the email addresses and they don't print. So that was something I wanted to let you know, that maybe don't put them in a link form or put them in.
Okay, well, if you got the cover letter, it's in the cover letter. It shouldn't be that way in the cover letter. But when I printed out my copy, it didn't do that. That's interesting.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe because it comes to me as a link, it's showing up as a link. Maybe I'm converting.
Well, no, wait a minute. Did I send you the one that you could alter? Did I send you the PDX?
Both. Yeah, I got the Windows version and the PDF, but that was I printed it from the Windows version, I think. Yeah, from the Windows Windows version. Word. I'm sorry, Word.
Okay. But see, yeah, you'll get that now. You could do that and rewrite your stuff, and then turn that Windows into a PDX, and it should print everything out.
All right. I'll try it that way.
Yeah,
but
double check that, because I printed mine out on a PDX, and I didn't have it. I didn't print mine out on the Windows, but I did the other one on the Windows, and it came up with no issues.
All right. Well, anyway,
we'll figure it out. We'll come up with something where it's more pat. We'll figure it out.
All right. So then I wanted to go to this because you mentioned doctors now, and of course we can file this, but also as individuals we need an answer for it as well. So
right.
And of course we can always stand on our paperwork or whatever, but if we can't answer for it, it doesn't look good for our side. But
right.
And I know you've been studying this stuff for a long time. Thank you very much, Ed. Big mahalos to you for that. But I'm just wondering, for my own clarification, okay, so like we're going to line 122, registration with the 1938 FAR.
Let's go ahead and open one up here, because I don't have one open right now. Let me go open my PDF one.
All right.
And that way I can look at the page number, the line number you're talking.
So, and it says, all public servants, official. Now, public servants is in quotes, so I imagine that's just added for clarification.
Right.
But all officials, congressmen, politicians, judges, attorneys, law enforcement officers, states, and their various agencies, etc., are the express agents of these foreign principles. And then you wrote in there, see Foreign Registration Act. Was that part of the actual?
Yeah, that's part of. You're talking what line now? You said one what?
27.
127. Okay, hang on a minute. Let me go back up to 127. No, because all this stuff actually came from the Department of Justice website itself.
Okay, so that's good to know. Because
when it says the foreign, when it goes here, whereas requirements, required facts, registration number with the 1938 FAIR, failure to file a foreign agent registration statement goes directly to the judiciary and lacks standing to before the court, and is a felony. This is right from it. That's why it's 18 USC 219- or apostrophe 951. That is actually the code under the Title 18. If they did not register, it's mandatory jail.
Nice.
So that's right off the structure. And all public service officials, congressmen, political parties, judges, attorneys, law enforcement officers, states, their various agencies, and that includes any medical personnel that's getting 501c9 funding.
So that's why you mentioned doctors.
Right. Well, that's because that's even part of the structure. Because anybody that's with a various agency that follows under a 501c3 or the registration of de facto that is on the public roster, yes, that follows that. Yes.
So what if they're getting Medicaid participation or any of that?
Writing anything off on income taxes, because see, it wasn't until 1930 or 1973, and it didn't go in effect until 1979, when hospitals could make a profit. Prior to that, a hospital couldn't make a profit at all, and if a hospital made a profit, the administration literally could go to prison for what is that called? Extortion of funds. So it wasn't changed until 73, and it didn't basically go into administrative rules until 1979.
Okay. So then it says any agent. Now, where did you bring in here? Where did you bring in the registered church members?
Oh, that gets further down. I don't remember what line it is, but that gets into with the funding sources that says that all elected and public employees registered, it's in the tax structure. I think the tax structure, right now I'm working on another instrument, so my brain is quite on this one, on the deal. It should be down in the 700s.
Oh, okay. See, I don't even think I've gotten all the way through it.
Okay, you haven't even got down to the oath of office, dealing with a public servant or a cop can and cannot do, with a peace officer's employees registration, embezzlement of government property, if the cops do road piracy and all that. That gets down in the 900s lines. And then it gets into the bar registration, and then it gets down into the original 13th Amendment structure, under the filing under the Foreign Administration Act with the bar structure itself.
Okay.
So you haven't even got more than halfway down it yet.
Oh, I haven't gotten through it all, so I'll have to admit that. But I have been sharing it around, and it's good stuff, Ed. It's really good stuff.
Because then it gets on the tax reform pay stuff, and that gets down on the lines of 1,000 through, I believe it's 1,300 through next 300 lines is all dealing with taxes and the structure of that, where they have to register for their employment under taxes because they get paid as an employment under the Bankruptcy Act of 1933. That's how they're able to make a draft note.
Uh-huh.
So, that gets all the way down through, flashing through it right now. Actually, that gets down to about the line 15. No, that goes further down. It gets into about the from 1,000 to 600 line, 1,000 to 500, 1,550 lines.
Oh,
so 550 lines is dealing with taxes and property rights and all that.
Uh-huh. Awesome. Well, what else? That's good news. Really generous of you to share it, Ed, and hope to make good on it for you. Working on some stuff on my end to try to assist that way. But this will be great. what's to say is, you definitely got the cops and the barsters and.
Oh yeah, no, they're all in it because this is what it was set up for. Because this goes all the way back to what the Civil War was too. Because even in the Civil War, like I said, we fought the South. This is why I have fun with the guys that argue with me about the British flag or their rebel flag, and I'm going, your rebel flag is the KK flag from the British government, racism, white racism flag. And they're going, oh no, that's our rights under the Federalist Papers. And it's like, guys, you don't even know history. Yeah. Because when the Constitution, at the end of the Civil War, the Federalist Papers were combined with the Constitution of the 1871 contract.
Huh.
That's where people don't get it. It was combined with the 1871 British contract with the Constitution that gave us the lawful legal rights, and it gave us elected and public servants under this act that they didn't get done until 1938, because they had to do that because they had to protect immigration invading our country, not protecting them, but knowing immigration that was invading our country, but it was to protect the lawful bloodline.
No, that's a fact. That's good. That's good. For that gentleman that called earlier, your question about whether you could, where you should send it, I think your answer was that, you're kind of simultaneously sending it, right? You're going to be sending it in the mail. You're going to be sending it through the email. So you're going to, and you post it on Facebook and whatever, I don't know, post it somewhere, right? And then, but the other point was, I'm going to try to find that number again. Remember, I explained to you once that you're able to call down to Washington, D.C., and they'll look the name up immediately. And tell you. So for the 3 officials that I called, none of them were registered.
Right. Now you can file on them. Yeah, it would be nice to get that number because I like to put that on the website because there is a phone number, folks, that you could actually call and see if your public servant did register themselves. And when you serve them, if they didn't register, then you can file the criminal charges on them for them to go to prison.
No, that's all good. All right, well, I'll look that up and try to get that sent to you through Messenger.
I love it because that works great for judges and clerks.
All right, man. We got to get these people on the ropes, man.
Mm-hmm.
Because, they certainly are not shy about knocking us around.
And not only that, but 22 CFR, that's in this paperwork, 9212-92.31 FR heading, Foreign Relations. Remember, when you become a public employee or registered contract to the government, you are a foreigner, states that all have to take a required oath to the Constitution. And this is where a guy, when I was having a conversation, he goes, well, what about the Constitution of 1871? I said, no. There's a required constitutional oath to the organic Constitution, not the corporation Constitution. It's knowing the way it reads compared to what people think. And then also, too, Title 8 U.S.C. 1481 states an oath of office is taken, citizenship is relinquished.
Yeah, no, I was reading that part. So
yeah, like I said, I got it all in here. So you're relinquishing your citizenship or your rights, and this is the point that it puts you in a legal and lawful obligation for that paycheck. And that's where it gives you the lawful responsibility under Title 28 U.S.C. 3002, Section 15A.
And what's that say?
Including, this is all judicial procedural sections. So federal corporation and not a government.
Right.
So the United States is a corporation, not a government.
Yeah, so there's that one section in there where it lists if you are an agent for a foreign.
Right.
But then it goes. It has commas. I'm trying to find it now. and corporation is listed in there, and it almost makes you read it as if it needed to be a foreign corporation. Is that your understanding, or what do you?
No, once you become a corporation member, you're a foreigner. You're not part of the United States. You even if your bloodline and your family's been here for 10 generations, you're not an American anymore. You're a corporation until you collect your retirement and reclaim your bloodline. If you don't claim your bloodline, you're still a British citizen under this Administration Act.
See, and I formed a corporation, but I have filed my paperwork, and nobody's rebutted it. So I do have evidence to the contrary.
Right, but even with your corporation, let's say it's a business, all right? But you separate your business from you because your business is a corporation. You are just the administrator for the corporation. So in other words, where the law says with John F. Kennedy, a lawyer could only represent a corporation, and the law says that anybody could be a lawyer so long as they know the law. So you could represent the corporation yourself because you know the corporation because you wrote the forefather and the forestructure of the corporation. So you're the representative of the corporation.
So then at that point, wouldn't you still like an attorney or somebody working for a judge working for the state? You would need to register as well. Is that true?
No, because see, you're not a full-time representative.
And it's private. It's not. I'm not dealing.
You're doing it on you. You register your corporation not as a public identity. You're not under public funding.
Right. Okay, so this is
the only way you have to register. Let's say in your job, the city or county's hired you, and they're paying you through tax funding. Then you have to register because you're getting paid by tax dollars.
Yeah. Now that makes sense. So, but when it says an agent of a foreign interest, and then it goes on and says one thing after another, and then in those series of commas is corporation, it doesn't mean a foreign corporation, does it?
Well, I'm not sure what line you're looking at. I got to look at the actual paragraph to summarize it.
All right. Well, let me try to find it, and then otherwise I'll let you go. We can talk about it later. But it just makes you want to read it as if a person needed to be an agent of a foreign corporation. But no, it's any corporation, right? A domestic corporation or a state corporation acting as government, right? I mean, so
right, a public-funded corporation.
Public funded. Okay. See, that's the part where I'm not making the connection, but
you got to get down, and I'll get you through the tax structure through line. I think it's 1100 through 1400.
Okay.
When you go through this, take your highlighter, and when you go through it, because I even got the structure in there, because if they use your information, even for identity theft, if they use your information for birth certificate records or anything else, is identity theft through this.
Okay. So, yeah. All right. Well, yeah, no, it makes sense. Now that you say it, I'm reading it again, and it's saying, public. So basically, anyone dealing with the public, getting public money, is that they're the foreign agents.
Well, that's like when you take your stuff to the court system, even the British court system, you're taking it to a public court system instead of dealing like with your neighbor, even like a handshake. That's between you and your neighbor, not the world. That's not between everybody else in the neighborhood.
Right. No, this is good, Ed. Well, thanks so much, man. Again, I got to get through it, and then I'll probably have some more questions for you. But thanks for being so generous.
Yeah, no problem. Like I said, that's the whole point, that is putting this stuff together so we start putting it together instead of like everybody's arguing and fighting over tidbits or, religion. And, God is going to do this and God is going to do that. Well, I was on that task for 10 years of my life, really going through that shit. And then the light went off in my head, and it's like, what the hell is God going to do for me? I have to do it for myself. You know, and so when I started putting this stuff together and you start realizing this stuff, you know, the Bible is a book to keep you in control. This is the point how to protect yourself and your family and your loved ones.
Yeah, you got all this stuff in here. I mean, essentially, you could send some of this stuff to your debtors, your creditors, or whatever, you know, and let them know that.
Oh yeah, because your debtors are taking it off on a write-off, and it's like I was talking to another gentleman earlier today, and he's like, "Well, you know, they're coming after me for student loans, and they did this, and they're telling me," and I'm going, "I don't care what they're telling you. Would you listen to me?" And then I started explaining him. Then he starts acting and defending, you know, the corporation that's doing this to him. And I said, "Do you want to listen, or do you want to go defend them? Because if you want to go defend them and quit calling me."
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if you want to know, because they can't sell your debt. Did you sign a contract with them? He goes, no. Well, then how can they contact you? They can't garnish your wages because you didn't sign a contract. They went and illegally stole your ID, called ID theft, put a false instrument into a court case, said that you had a jury trial. Did you ever go to a jury trial? And he goes, no. So how can you agree to anything or have anything that's in recorded record when nothing was done? In recorded record, they committed, what is that called? Fraud upon the court.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, don't sit there and try to argue with me, kid. I'm like, here's the way it works. You know, do you want to learn this, or do you want to sit there and go argue? And he's going, well, I sent them payment coupons, and I wrote it off, and I did. I said, no, you didn't. What you did is that's why they sent you letters and saying they weren't accepting it. And you're lucky because that's where everybody else got indicted on.
Yeah, and speaking of that, are you guys following the Tussie giraffe case or whatever, the people in Tennessee?
Which case is that one?
One that's she's the one that's basically she's saying that the U.S. Was defunct in 2003. That we foreclosed on, and just pointing to the jurisdiction. I'm going to try and look it up here. It's
send it to me. I like to check further on it. I've heard of what you talk about, but I didn't really look at it. And send me a link to it, and I'll really look at it, and then that way I can give a thought to it.
I'll do that. All right, I'm getting left to center here for you, Ed. But let me let you get going, and thanks again for keeping our feet to the fire on this stuff.
Well, yeah, because that's the whole point. Like I said, that's all I do is sit here and do the research. I got nothing going on in my life because of what they done. And until people start educating themselves on the truth instead of getting caught up with arguments, when people are not caught up in arguments, oh my God, we start looking at things and they start working. You know, because when you get to a point, the cops don't want to bother with you.
Yeah. The old attorney here, he's kind of a do-gooder, rebel rouser now. You know, occasionally they get some spine at the end of their career. You know, and he's an old timer. But anyway, he says you want to be unwanted.
Yes.
You know the old Wild West, right? The wanted posters.
Yeah.
You want your picture on there, and it says unwanted.
Right. Or when they post that picture up, you don't want to see a picture. You know, I don't like it because I got to go back after and file on this company because when they kidnapped me, they still got my damn mugshot still up on the goddamn on the internet.
Oh shit.
And that pisses me off because they kidnapped me for telling the truth.
Well, that's what's interesting about this case in Tennessee is that she's there. He's got the transcripts, and she's just tearing down the judge, and she's saying, yeah, I'll accept everything you say, even though you have no authority. I'll accept it all, but this is a private agreement, and he doesn't know quite what to do with it. So. It's pretty interesting. You know, it's one thing to file paperwork and have the judge run out of the courtroom. It's another thing when, the judge is actually having some dialogue and realizing that he doesn't know everything either.
That's right. He's getting caught up in it.
Uh-huh.
I
Well,
know.
yeah, I'm going to cut out, Ed, and but I just wanted to join in and thank you for sending that off. And well, it feels like the legal golden ticket for all these officials coming after you. I'll tell you that. So.
Well, yeah, but we're setting it up so that way they have to prove that they have liability, and I will be getting up the one that I filed on John Kitzhopper up on the site for property taxes, because I got to do that here this week to stay afloat here. But I got to file my indictments when I pay this property taxes, because they've already threatened me if I didn't pay it, I'll be shot. Because I'm not leaving my land. I'll go in a blaze of glory. So I mean, I already paid for it. I own it. I'm proving my deal. So and I will send anybody who sends me their message. I'll send you what I filed on the former governor, and I can prove everything that property taxes are 100% voluntary, and that was even the structure in the Civil War with the South. The South wanted the North to pay property taxes, and we said no.
Well, there's one gentleman down there in Florida, and he pointed out how the Florida laws, property taxes only apply to a business.
Elected and public servants and the corporation. I think I know who you're talking about.
Or businesses. So basically.
Right, exactly. And or corporation businesses, yes.
Right. So all the people that are residents in Florida, for sure, and probably likely other states, I think it's true, all the property tax. Think of the millions of property taxes.
Anyhow, our time on our machine is going to be clicking, so I'll catch up with you. I'll send you this other stuff, but I'd like to thank everybody for joining us this evening. I'll get some more information. I'll get this other tax stuff put up, and for that, I appreciate everybody joining us, and we'll continue the education. And thank you. May the Great Spirit and Mother Earth bless you, and the Creator look over you. Thank you for joining me tonight.
All participants are muted.
Education by Ed. Kind of a long night tonight, but that's what happens when you get good conversation happening. It is currently Sunday, November 12th, 2017, and it's 7:13 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And a reminder, any living man or woman that calls Ed before 10 o'clock a.m. Pacific Standard Time is a retard. Get a clue. Yeah. He works hard, works late at night, sometimes up until 5 o'clock in the morning or even later. And when you call him at 8 o'clock or 8:17 in the morning to argue with him that you're not a foreigner or that your privileges outdoes his rights, you just need to take that cord that hooks up to that phone, if you're using those, and wrap it around your own neck. Thank you. That's just my personal opinion. Now, you all have a good night, and catch you tomorrow whenever Ed's going to be talking about flags, and hopefully not just flags in the court, but flags for the veterans, too. So, have a good night, and we will see you tomorrow.
This session is no longer being recorded.